Within the specialty coffee industry, a persistent illusion exists that the mechanical variables of grind size and contact time are the absolute dictators of a brew's strength. Consumers fall for a similar fallacy. We treat caffeine as a direct metabolic fuel, believing that increasing the dose provides the body with actual cellular energy. But the reality is that perceived strength in the cup and perceived energy in the mind are emergent properties of physical aqueous chemistry and neuropharmacological antagonism. We will now trace the technical timeline from portafilter kinetics to neural receptor blockades to reveal the science of your coffee. This investigation begins with the physical chemistry of aqueous extraction, where hot water acts as a selective solvent. We then pivot to the neurochemistry of the human brain to see how caffeine hijacks our internal signaling. Achieving peak performance from coffee requires discarding industry lore and treating the entire process as a strict dual-system chemical equation. While the Maillard reaction creates hundreds of volatile compounds during roasting, volatility doesn't actually govern how those compounds move from bean to water. Quantitative in-cup data, captured through solid-phase microextraction and gas chromatography, shows that compounds enter the brew at vastly different rates. The extraction speed of an odorant correlates directly with its chemical polarity. This is expressed mathematically through the partition coefficient, or log P over W, which determines if a molecule is highly polar or effectively nonpolar. The highly polar 2,3-butadiene follows a steep vector, extracting instantly, while nonpolar beta-damascenone follows a slow, shallow trajectory. Sensorially, 2,3-butadiene brings buttery notes early in extraction. In contrast, beta-damascenone's cooked apple notes appear only after significant water passes through the coffee. Because these compounds extract at such different speeds, the aroma balance of the brew is in a constant state of flux as water volume increases. Coffee flavor is not a static snapshot. It is a chronological sequence dictated strictly by molecular polarity. This sequence is manipulated by your water chemistry, specifically dissolved minerals acting as co-solvents during extraction. Magnesium ions are particularly effective at binding with the organic acids in the coffee bed. This binding increases the solubility of those acids, leading to a cup with brighter acidity and a more pronounced sweetness. Calcium behaves differently, interacting with larger molecules to enhance the structural body and mouthfeel of the coffee rather than its acidic clarity. This brings us to the common misunderstanding of hard water, or water with a high concentration of dissolved minerals. Excessively hard water does not actually extract a higher total dose of caffeine from the grounds. Instead, the high mineral content aggressively pulls out late-stage, non-polar bitter phenolic compounds. What consumers perceive as a stronger cup is usually just a higher concentration of bitter minerals and phenols, not an increase in the stimulant load. Caffeine itself is highly water-soluble and extracts efficiently regardless of mineral hardness. But once it enters your bloodstream, it provides zero cellular energy in the form of ATP. These caffeine molecules are absorbed systemically, rapidly crossing the blood-brain barrier to begin their primary work on your neural architecture. The brain has a natural fatigue mechanism, the steady accumulation of adenosine, a byproduct of energy consumption that builds up throughout your waking hours. As adenosine levels rise, they bind to A2A receptors, which signals the brain to slow down and increases sleep pressure. Caffeine functions through competitive antagonism. Sharing a similar structure with adenosine, it slides into the A2A receptors first, blocking them. This physical blockade prevents the synapse's firing rate from slowing down, keeping you alert even as adenosine continues building up outside the cell. Caffeine also inhibits an enzyme called phosphodiesterase, or PDE. Blocking PDE leads to a buildup of cyclic AMP inside the cell, which further stimulates neural activity and increases the perception of wakefulness. Finally, caffeine inhibits cholinesterase, which increases the levels of acetylcholine for heightened focus. This energy is a biological illusion. It is a chemical masking of the body's physical sleep signals, not a replacement for rest. The duration of this mask is dictated by caffeine's half-life, which can range from 2 to 12 hours depending on your metabolic rate and genetics. The crash occurs when the caffeine eventually metabolizes and dissociates from the A2A receptors. The adenosine produced during the blockade hasn't disappeared, it has been accumulating in the background. Once the receptors are free, this backlog of adenosine floods them all at once, causing an acute, massive spike in sleep pressure. With chronic use, the brain adapts through a process called upregulation. To compensate for the constant blockade, the brain increases the total density of A2A receptors on the neural membrane. This upregulation forces you to consume more caffeine just to reach a baseline state of alertness, while making the eventual crash even more severe. This structural shift traps the user in a state of chronic sleep deprivation that caffeine can no longer counteract. Ultimately, this cycle fragments restorative sleep and degrades the mental clarity needed for baseline performance. Mastering the coffee experience involves two distinct chemical environments: the physical solvent in the cup and the neural landscape of the brain. For the brew, you must target water with a total dissolved solids count between 75 and 150 parts per million. These parameters ensure you extract the polar, aromatic compounds effectively while leaving the nonpolar, bitter phenols behind. Biologically, continuous receptor blockade disrupts the deep, slow-wave sleep required for neural recovery. Resetting your system requires a full cessation of caffeine for 7 to 14 days. This window allows the nervous system to physically prune back its excess adenosine receptors and fully normalize your baseline sensitivity. While these processes occur in different environments, they are governed by the same logic: the strict, unsentimental management of chemical equations.